Uniform Civil Code doesn't stand only to religious practices. It goes much beyond that. But as on today, even the government want to bring parity in some of the practices which are prevalent under the various religion. It is only a first step to be taken, but it is not going to be done in one step. I think it has to be done in a phased manner.
I'm joined today by former Law Secretary PK Malhotra. Hello, sir. We want to get an unbiased version of what is the Uniform Civil Code. Is it necessary, and why are so many people up in arms against it? Why is it such a sticking point? And, sir, I'm just going to sort of come straight to you. Um, Criminal laws are applicable uniformly across India, but civil laws, most of the civil laws also are, except for those related to or personal laws related to religion, mainly covering succession, divorce, marriages, adoption, guardianship, and so on and so forth. Now, all that is about to change if the buzz is to be believed that UCC is going to become a reality. India has been doing without a UCC for 75 years. Why the imperative now?
Thank you, Aditi, for inviting me for this important talk, because it is a hot topic of discussion for quite few days. And when the parliament session is in the offing, and the talk of the town is that in the current session itself, government is likely to bring UCC. As you have rightly said, because when we talk of UCC, generally people talk about marriage, divorce, adoption, inheritance, and succession under the various religions. In 1955, the codification of law was done so far as the Hindus are concerned. And the Hindus, they included Sikh, Jain, Buddhist also. But so far as the Muslims, Christians, and Parsis are concerned, they were not included in it. And when the constitution framers were framing the constitution, at that time also, there was a debate whether for succession, inheritance, adoption, divorce, whether there should be a common law. But because of the religious practices prevalent under the various religion, and because we are a secular country, it was thought that the time is not right, because if you are bringing a uniform civil code, probably some of the religious practices will be adversely affected. But once the constitution came into force, and it was put as the directive principle of state policy in Article 44 of the Constitution, which specifically provides that the state shall endeavor to secure for the citizens a uniform civil code throughout the territory of India. Now, let me make it very clear that we as a citizen, when we talk of uniform civil code, most of the time the talk is about the religious practices and the personal law. We are not going to touch under the uniform civil code with the religious practices which are prevalent. But uniform civil code means where there are certain fundamental rights of the individual which are adversely affected because of non-implementation of the uniform civil code. To that extent, the provision should be made in the law for all citizens of the country, to whatever religion he may be belonging. Take, for example, the divorce in the Muslim law is given in a different way. Divorce under the Hindu law is given in a different way. For Parsis, you have a separate law. For Christianity, you have a separate law. Idea is to bring uniformity for that particular religion, so that every citizen is equally treated, and on the name of religion, he is not discriminated so far as enforcement of his or her fundamental right is concerned. It is, in fact, it is the disparity and the gender discrimination which is being promoted because of the religious practice. Idea of bringing UCC is to do away with that kind of gender discrimination. And not only the Article 44, which is in the directive principle of state policy, which mandates for it, even the Supreme Court, when the public interest litigations were filed before it, and in many other cases also, like that of Shah Banu or Sarla Mudgil or Saira Banu, and many other cases, had emphasized that the government should seriously consider implementation of the Uniform Civil Code.
You talked about the Shah Banu case.
Yes.
The origin of this entire UCC debate has started from there. I mean, yes, of course, it was there in our directive principles in the Constitution, but it suddenly became in recent, there was a legal precedent there as far as the Shah Banu case was concerned. What exactly was the court's observation in the Shah Banu case? Why did they feel the need to rule the manner in which they did?
You see, when the Shah Banu case was brought before the Supreme Court, in fact, that lady was divorced when she was already, I think, 60 years of age. And by simply saying talak, 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 the husband had given talak. And she had 4 or 5 children whom she has to support. And she moved an application under CRPC for maintenance of the children and for her maintenance itself, which the Supreme Court said under CRPC it can be granted because the Supreme Court gave that direction, but because at that time the Muslim community was of the view, because this is a subject matter of personal law, probably this judgment is not in accordance with the personal law of the Muslim, and therefore the Parliament enacted a law by which the verdict given by in the Shah Banu case was undone, and because of that law. Again, the demand was raised by other sections of the society. I think this is discriminatory to the women. They are entitled to maintenance. Even if the personal law is not permitting it, then why don't the government come out with a uniform civil code by which the law with regard to maintenance, inheritance, and succession is uniformly applied to all religious communities living in this country? I think once you are talking about the rights of the individual, which are to be implemented through social and political rights, for social and economic rights, I think it becomes very important that it must have a legislative backing. Since as on today there is no legislative backing, therefore all religious practices are also given due consideration by the courts when they take a decision. If the parliament is going to make a law whereby these particular rights of the women and children are also protected uniformly among all sections of the society to whatever religion they may be belonging, I think the objective of having a secular state to that extent will be achieved. Secular doesn't mean that you can't enforce the fundamental rights. If fundamental rights are to be enforced without going into the religious practices, I think the objective of the constitution will be achieved. I give you one example. Suppose a marriage is to be performed under the Hindu law. Under the Hindu law, you perform a marriage, and Saptapadi is an important function in that. Similarly, among the Muslims, it is a nikah which takes place. This nikah is a religious practice. Saptapadi is a religious practice. But after that, if the UCC prescribes that after complying with your religious practices, you must get your marriage registered with the registrar of marriages, what's wrong in that? That is, from here onward, the uniform civil code start. And as I said earlier also, uniform civil code doesn't start only to religious practices. It goes much beyond that. But as on today, even the government want to bring parity in some of the practices which are prevalent under the various religion. It is only a first step to be taken, but it is not going to be done in one step. I think it has to be done in a phased manner. First, you start with the registration of marriages. You can start with the succession. You can start with maintenance of the women and children. If these steps are taken, then maybe so far as other aspects of the uniform civil code are concerned, but going beyond the personal law, those can also be implemented.